race and religion. Is that a massive criteria when picking relationships? Who would like to go first? Mo?
I think it's a big discussion to have once you have your spouse or your partner or your relationship. So it's definitely a discussion that you definitely need to have because it is important.
How can that affect a relationship when you're choosing a partner? How can that affect choosing a partner?
If not spoken about, different races come with different respects, different principles, which you need to understand. And, as simple as it may be, if you cross the line, it could, trigger what's not needed.
An example would be, really, in terms of religion or races, what examples can you give?
In terms of, race-wise, culture, religion. So if we're talking about culture, like I'm Nigerian.
Yeah.
If you're gonna come home to see, say, my mom or something like that, there's a certain way you would greet her. You can't go to her and say, "Hello, ma. Oh, how are you?" You understand? Like she'll say it as, "This one is rude," and you might take it as, "What she mean?" We're in a modern world, and really that has to do with race and that has to do with culture. So that's understanding that.
So obviously I see couples in distress for various different reasons, and some are because they've had children and the relationship changes between the parents. Yeah. But also, I have couples come in that have had affairs. There's an affair there. Now, 40% apparently of marriages, there is cheating going on in 40%. So that's because I think conversations didn't happen beforehand. You sort of slide into marriage and don't talk about, what are the rules of this union or this cohabiting. I think if you're cohabiting, you could also have conversations saying, what do we mean by this commitment? Yeah. What does it mean for us?
What benefits do you believe come with polygamy?
It varies. I come from a polygamous home, and I didn't see any difference, and I reckon it's because of the environment. I can't, envisage a polygamous home in Europe where you have 2 wives and like dozens of kids running around. But in Africa, where we grew up, it's normal. The next door neighbor, people across the road.
Very normal.
So it's
Everybody
very
knows
normal.
and
it's got nothing to do with money. The man doesn't have to be financially capable to have more women. So it's just a cultural thing in there for people who practice such things. Even in Europe, there are places where polygamy is normal.
It's particularly in the United States, where America says that 42% of marriages in the US are interfaith ones. So it looks like the general wave and consensus, particularly in the United States of America, is that faith isn't a barrier to relationships.
Exactly, but you also have to recognize that the environment is a bit more liberal as well. So it's different from.
Some people might think it's a little bit more conservative.
Judging by their countries, you can't have that same stuff in Pakistan or in Saudi Arabia. So again, it's about the environment, the liberality.
Will also come into
exactly.
play.
So the statement you issued earlier, a black kid can grow up here but he prefers white friends, he has more white friends. That doesn't mean, you understand? So that discredits the statement. If an Arsenal fan, a Chelsea fan can like Drogba,
always has to bring it to football. When you get the Arsenal fan, Dr. Kelechi, on the table, he finds a way to navigate.
No, because we see these race things in the terraces, we see it in football as well.
Now, let me put a more general question to the panel here. Has anyone here, Kelechi, had a relationship that has failed because of race or religion? Have you experienced that? Do you know anybody within the family or friendship circle?
No, I have friends that are married to Muslims at the moment, and they are really more strong. So if I even had a kid last week, so no, not at all. I'm marrying the person. We might decide not to go to church or the mosque and just chill on Sunday. You know, it's not that deep.
Some girls will say, even though my friend dated him, it's okay for me to be friends with him. And other girls will say, listen, if we're broken up, no friendship on this level.
This is where the maturity comes.
So what's the mature?
The maturity is if you went out with a man and you and him are no longer going out, then be mature enough to pass him over to your friend. That means you still got issues, you still got feelings for him. You're not mature to deal with that.
This is what I'm saying about the bro code. Honestly, that shit.
The bro code is the same. Oh, what? Listen.
Crazy as well.
Listen, come on.
There's a difference between dancing and, as you said, simulated sexing. I feel like nowadays, I feel like a lot of the stuff that I see going on in the raves now, you might as well just take your clothes off and start doing what you're doing, because that looks like
private room.
Absolutely.
But do you think that line's been sort of blurred
I think it has been, because I feel like to carry on like that, it's not exactly normal, is it? So I feel like it's
really not.
It is definitely vulgarity in my eyes. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
What other measures can be taken around alcohol now to make it even difficult? Because you're looking at 15% of alcohol and drinkers becoming addicts, 3,000 deaths and injuries a year being alcohol related. That has to reduce, doesn't it?
No, definitely. And, you know, like as you said about addiction, I think because it's so ingrained in our society to drink, it's easy for people to just say, oh, you know, I just have a casual drink every now and then. And then when you look at it, it's like half a bottle of wine every night. And then on weekends, then they're doing shots and spirits. Because again, it's this culture thing which makes it the excess more acceptable. Because like, you know, when I was a youth, we didn't do shots. We didn't do shots. We didn't go to the bar and get, shot, whoa. And because now you're not just sipping the drink, you're back in it.
One time.
So is that kind of excess which is causing I think causing the damage. So there needs to be a change in the culture again. But because there's so much money in it, these breweries, again, you know, whenever there's student unis, you'll find that there's always a discounted, you know, drink option.
Bar or something.
All the time,
If you're going to wait until people are 16 for them to understand that everyone in society, no matter what their sexual orientation is, what their racial background is, what their ethnicity is, if you're going to wait until 16 for them to be aware of that you know, everyone is equal, I mean, that's way too late. I think, you know, 5 years old is perfectly fine, because as you correctly point out, and it's important to make that point, that this is not about sex, actually, especially at that age. So there's no one talking about genitalia, no one talking about, you know, any sexual acts. It's all about, hey, the world is a big place and people come in many different types of shapes and form, including that some people, you know, are LGBTQ plus identifying. So I don't think that any of it, and if you look at what, you know, the No Outsiders program, what it is that they're teaching or what they're proposing to teach to children, it's all quite innocuous, quite frankly. You know, it's little books that say, you know, there's it just so happens sometimes that you can have two daddy penguins, you know, looking after a child. It's not anything that's really, I don't think, going to be too much for children to be able to take in. So don't wait till 16. The sooner kids know about this kind of stuff, the more they're going to be rounded human beings and going to be better members of society.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I mean, I see both sides of the argument. I've got to come down on one side, and if push came to shove, I think parents should be fined. But also, I agree with Mr. C says, how do kids find out that their consequences have actions? Well, therefore, it's for the parent then to kind of go, I've been fined, we're selling your Xbox. So I think that, you know, as long as it trickles down and the kids understand that. I mean, here's an example, okay? So I have one kid, he's pretty good. When he was a bit younger, he would sometimes do stuff like say, I'm going round to John's house, and then all of a sudden we'd ring because we're going out, and we'd ring John's place and he wouldn't be there. So we would go, so I would say to him, listen.
Did you phone Janet's house?
So I'd say to him, listen, you've got to tell us where you are, because I don't want ever a policeman coming up, knocking on the door and going, your son's been down in South London at Janet's house, and I go, that's not the case, he's at John's house, and the police go, well, you're not a good parent because you don't even know where your kid is. Because I'd say to him, we are good parents, you're making us look bad, and if you make us look bad, then we're going to punish you. So we're doing the best we can, but you've got to help us. It's a two-way street. So yes, I think that I think a lot of the problems that we've got today is parents do not take responsibility for their parental duties, and that includes the action of their kids.
I feel like my disability has sort of helped me become the person I am today. Because if not for the disability, I doubt I'd have gotten a shot into the bank to get into the banking sector, which I'm in right now. It took me a lot of, I can remember how I got the job. I went to a disability program, and that's how I got the job basically. It was a 2-week program, and I did really well on the program, and that's why they offered me the permanent role.
Is football destined to always be a magnet for racism? Panel, what do you think? racism, this is not just in football, this has come out from society. You got to really understand that. And this is the likes of when my parents came over on the Windrush and me growing up in the 60s, racism was fully out. It's changed where blatantly now it can't be thrown in your face, legally, where now it's taken to football matches. You've got to understand this. Yes, we've been fighting this game since I've started myself, and it was understandably that when I came into the game, professional game, I didn't expect to hear that kind of abuse. I was shocked, and being a young lad, tremendously shocked, because it was far from me forgotten growing up with racism, to come to a professional dream of mine and to receive this from my own fans. Now it's conducted where some even involving players, and this is where it's getting deep. This is where the FA, and I was talking with Paul and my colleague here, Dex, that the FA, Premier League, they've got to step up their game right now. And something needs to be done. And this is where we all are, players, whether past or future players that are there today, are talking about it. Negatively, it's hurtful, but I think at this moment, some of the players, you're not hearing the full scope of what's been going on, because I think there's a lot of complaints we're just not hearing verbally and out there. And the reason why, I think, because some of the players feel they could be sanctioned, reprimanded, and by their club or by the FA.
It's just very, very hard, because you don't know what some people are going through. And I find that people find it hard to talk, and especially I would say men, and then to like marginalize that a little bit more, I would say black men. It's like very, very hard for people to talk these days. I'm very open. I can talk to anybody about anything that's going on in my life, but that's me isolated. Other people find it very hard, and there needs to be some kind of mechanisms that allows people to talk and air their thoughts, so that they don't feel alone in their thinking.
Years ago, I'm talking about hundreds of years ago, it was formerly acceptable to have more than one wife. And within a religion, I think it was the Mormon faith at the time, it was also acceptable, including the founder of the faith, had more than one wife. What seems to be the problem now, where people are discussing Old Testament and New Testament?
I think you've got to look at it from, things evolve, right? Even as religion, times, religion, and people, we evolve, we move. And I think now, to have more than one wife in such a nature, in such a time where, first of all, you're going out of the norm, but second of all, we're in times of social media, we're in times of iPhones, we're in times of everything is documented. When, in a time where people could do it and there was a status, you could probably keep things behind closed doors. Now, what are you keeping behind closed doors when there's a WhatsApp group with your whole family? The wives in your family will be messaging each other. Who's with him now?
Tim, you're talking about social, the social constraints, the picture within the social world right now. Some women are very comfortable being mistresses, and it's in some social arenas, it's acceptable. Let's take France, for instance.
But you said mistress.
Yes.
We're not talking about mistress, we're talking about wives.
But I'm even going to
mistress is someone that you go around the corner and you
hide with, kind of a side
we're talking about wife.
Yes,
you come into the house.
Although
when you come down for breakfast, she's there.
Legalize weed, ban alcohol. So would you say legalize weed?
Legalize the cannabis.
How did I
know? To the north, to the south, to the east and the west.
Oh my God.
Inhale it and blow it out your chest.
Oh my
Booze. I'd like to see some tighter restrictions on booze.
I tell my son that, listen, you're responsible for every single action that you take. Whatever it is that you do, is because you want to do it. Because if we also keep on making excuses for our youths, then they can really say, listen, my behavior, my bad behavior is because of this. And because
influence.
Exactly.
Do you think the fact that young women find you attractive, or the fact that young women are throwing themselves at you, kind of absolves you from any responsibility as a man of God?
course not. Of course not. I mean, the moment you give into something like that, you've already violated what you've signed up for when you're working for God. So I don't. First of all, I don't even believe that it's the females throwing themselves. I mean, obviously, you're going to get a few
I don't believe
cases
that either.
where
Yes.
it does happen. But especially this one that we're talking about now with the Gucci pastor, as he's known, and even other pastors, these are people exploiting these young females. They're exploiting them. So no, I don't see it like that. And it's all about biblical principles.
Yes.
Fornication has never been the thing to do. It's never the right thing. So there's absolutely no excuse.
Now let's speak practically. Mo, have you ever had to consider cultural differences, race or religion in choosing your spouse?
Not really. I mean, for me, I got to a point in my life where I just really had to sit down and do my soul searching on what I want to know. I have gone through the bout of studying about Christianity.
I thought you were going to say I've gone through a couple relationships.
No. I've studied Christianity. I've studied Islam. You know, just to gain knowledge about what I want to do and in what line I want to go in. You know, so as young adults, you do come to that point. You know, regardless if your mom has taken you to church from jump. You know, you come to a point where the mom's not there, the dad's not there, the friends are not there. Now your society will determine for you as well. You know?
So what you're saying is you would marry anybody as long as you're in love with them?
As long as, if I'm in love with them, but we'll have that conversation. You know, it's all about understanding. If I have the conversation
I'm not
with you,
getting you clear enough. If you're in love with a woman, regardless of her race or religion, you're definitely committed to that relationship.
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I feel like there is almost this subconscious that the black woman should be almost suppressed. So at a younger age, they can do that in terms of sexualizing and saying, oh, don't wear this to school, while your friends can wear, your friends of other races can wear it to school. But when they do grow older and, develop, some sort of, independence and, a name for themselves and the confidence to actually speak up, the reverse is the case because they feel the need to still suppress them. But the only way to do that is to say, actually, no, you can't be as sexual as you want to be. We think, a lot of people use certain types of words to describe black women when they act in certain ways that other races will act. And I think religion and culture are definitely the most prominent things to think about, most prominent factors to consider.
A lot what some churches are doing to even, because I believe prevention is also good as well. Yeah. They're introducing, for you to be a teacher in the church, you have to have a DBS check. So something as minute as that can save a child's life and prevent them from being molested.
I think it's better in co-education schools. The competition between the boys and the girls is healthy, and it will help the boy or the girl, become better people. You look at what's going on now about, assault, sex assault, consent and all that. You need to teach these kids from a young age, So co-education or whatever you call it, or mixed schools for me is a very, very great idea. Now, when you come to hearing from what you're saying about boys preferring sport and girls preferring something else, I mean, that bridge is actually closer now because with the recent Women's World Cup, for instance, they're encouraging girls to get into football, sports now. So I think it's good. I need to help the country, to help the economy.
Let's take worst case scenario. Let's say that little Johnny at 5 years old learns that the two male penguins, and he wants to, and he's like, oh well, maybe that's not such a bad idea. At 8 years old, 9 years old, a little girl, hears about transgender people and thinks, wow, is that something that could possibly be the case with me? Yeah. Obviously, you're not going to be able to have any sort of surgery or anything like that until you are of age. Yeah. So you have to consent post 18 probably in most countries in order to be able to have the reassignment surgery in the first place. But what is so wrong about a little girl or a little boy thinking that they might be gay?
Absolutely.
The whole point of this actually is that you want fully rounded human beings who are able to say, oh, maybe I am gay.
You can have kids that are born in the same house, eat the same food, have the same experiences. One's good, one's bad. But at some point, I think it's important that parents step up. And it's very, very easy. I mean, did you ever smack your kids?
I've never smacked my kids. I've beaten them. I've beaten them.
So two different.
I've beaten them. However, what I'll say, like my two youngest sons are 14 and 16.
Right.
So the last time I probably had to put my hand on my child was probably when they was around about 8 or 9.
So it sounds as though your kids respect you.
Yeah, there's a level of respect.
So where's that come from? Has that come from just the fact that, you know, what's that relationship? You obviously talk to one another and there's something going on there.
That relationship is based on, number one, consequences, and at the end of the day, I am your father. I'm the closest thing that you know to God. Yeah, no, because if they haven't got that fear, then they become fearless.
Yeah.
And that's what's happened with a lot of our, especially our young males. So with my children, I've had to lay down the law, but then over time, this is where you have to make them understand about the consequences of their actions. So the same thing like you're saying, if something happens, you take something away that they enjoy and that they have pleasure or they have value on.
In my times of addiction, I mean, I attempted suicide many times.
You did?
Many, many times.
Okay.
I was clinically depressed. I had clinical suicidal depression. So every time I would take copious amount of drugs after that, I'd never expect to wake up. My whole thought process is, I was upset if I ever come out of having a massive hit of heroin. Okay, so for me, continually going through that process, there was an expectancy that I wanted to die, and I welcomed it. But somebody else had other plans.
Nah, man, you ain't going nowhere. Man.
Don't forget, every episode of Noni, past and present, is online at yangatv.com. So wherever you are in the world, you can see this show and other great content from Yanga. Join us again soon for more entertaining chat. Until then, goodbye.